Good morning and welcome to this session. So happy to see everyone joining in. We will keep this title slide, intro slide open for a bit, and it allows you to get comfortable in Teams, to find the chat perhaps, and share where you're joining in from, if it is a good morning or if it is a good afternoon or good evening even. Tell us where you're joining in from and perhaps also what you're hoping to learn or maybe even unlearn today. So we are looking to reflect, to share, to consider where we come from, where other people come from, and perhaps what we can learn from each other and where we can adjust our own understanding, basically. So very welcome to share in the chat where you're joining in from and what you are looking to learn or unlearn today. I'm taking it all of you have your reasons to join in. I'm really excited to see where this conversation will take us, that we look to be having today. So please do feel free to find the chat in Teams and share in a message where you're from and what you're looking forward to today.
Thank you for the invitation, Tova, and I think that also this will very much set the tone for the entire session today. We are having an amazing lineup of speakers, but we would also really want to invite you afterwards to a very interactive and reflecting space. Hence, also already inviting for a conversation and for sharing in the chat.
Exactly. You join, and your first task is to be active. This is not a place to relax. This is a place to participate, and you are very welcome, all of you who are joining in now. I see some people are still joining, but I also think we have most people here. So I actually suggest let's open, let's move on, let's proceed. Please continue sharing in the chat where you're from, what you'd like to learn today, what you're looking forward to, or maybe even unlearn, which thoughts you look to adjust based on what you hear from others. And in the meantime, just let me quickly talk you through what you can expect today. So we have landed, not surprisingly, in the introduction part of our program. This is where we start and when we already ask you to participate. We have, as Anka already shared, an amazing lineup of speakers. We have 3 people who will share from their observations and experiences. They will all introduce themselves as soon as they start talking also. From my part, my name is Tove Antonissen. I am a member of the African Circular Economy Network, and I also have my own initiative, Straight Circles, which you see there on the screen, which tends to look at things from different perspectives. So a great fit with today's activity. The first keynote speaker, Leanne, I hope you're online because again, I'm sharing my screen, so I'm a little bit blocked in what I see. But we have our first speaker, and for now, you will be happy to hear all of you joining in. What we ask you to do is actually sit back, enjoy, open up your mind, and just listen to Leanne and what she will share with you. So Leanne Munyori, she is an experience designer. She has a way of observing everything that goes on around her in terms of flows, etc. And she has agreed to set the scene, set the tone for this session with us by sharing some thoughts and observations on her side. So Leanne, can I hand over to you? Please come in and see that your microphone is working.
Testing 1, 2.
Yes, we can hear you, and this is your visual up there, so it's all yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm a bit sweaty, but I'm glad to be here. My name is Leanne, as Tuve has mentioned. I am in Nairobi, and I am an experience designer. So I just recently had, let me catch my breath. But so recently I was in South Africa, and it was such an interesting time. So it's the second time I've been there. The first time was actually courtesy of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation when we were doing the African cohort for the circular economy training. And so this time round, I went there more for just the touristy stuff, so to speak. And I had the opportunity to go to Table Mountain and also to Robben Island. And in all those areas, one of the key people that kept on being mentioned were the Khoisan. And this was before the colonial period. So, and it was such an emotional time for me, honestly. I didn't even realize how emotional it would be, despite the fact that even in Kenya, we've gone through, the colonialism and fighting for independence. But then hearing a different part of the story, it was quite something. So I started looking into the Khoisan, and it was interesting to see just how they had really figured out how to live regeneratively. That was the core of their life in terms of, so they were very gifted hunters and gatherers. Anytime they had an activity, they would defer to, it was almost meritocratic. So it's not necessarily because you're the leader, you get to make all the decisions. It was egalitarian. And in addition to that, they had a pastoralist lifestyle. And what that meant is that they keep moving because they had such an intuitive and deep understanding of ecological dynamics. So where is the water? Where should we go graze? So issues like overgrazing wasn't there, or even in terms of building structures so that it's almost what we learn in camping, where you leave no trace. So wherever they move to, they leave it better, or the traces that they leave back aren't necessarily for the detriment of that location. So when I was just observing, or rather thinking through it, because it was such a long flight, I was thinking to myself, okay, so for them, regenerativeness was not just ecological, but it was also social, because we have a tendency to mostly place economics, which wasn't necessarily a thing for them, um, at the center of our practices now. But for them, that wasn't even an item or a consideration, because it was either ecological or social. Those were the two things that they were. And in as much as from an outsider who probably isn't curious, and even just other tribes within the area who weren't necessarily practicing life the same way that they were, if we weren't curious, we wouldn't see the frameworks that are already in existence, or the mindsets that they already had there, which for me, as I kept on digging deeper, it just came down to sharing. You share your power, you share autonomy, you share decision making. So it's not the purview of just one person. And it also got me thinking right now, how much of sharing do I actually do? Because in as much as we have ride sharing like Ubers, it's still under an economic structure. But then when we think of ride sharing in terms of carpooling, it changes the dynamics just a little, that much more, but it's more about creating community, because the guys that you ride with, you can share your playlist, you can share your experiences of the day, you can talk about other things that aren't just work and your boss or that colleague who is constantly dipping into your yogurt that you buy specially from that organic farmers market. So I guess the main question for me when I came back, because I've also been raised as an only child, and we are notoriously known to not be sharers. It's it was how much sharing do I actually do, and not for, let's say, on social media where I'm trying to create or curate a particular perception, but genuine sharing, whether it's what I have materialistically, whether it's my time for someone who needs a listening ear, and even sharing space for someone to challenge what I think. Because I think sometimes personally, I have a tendency sometimes to attach my beliefs to my identity. And when it's challenged, it feels personal, even when it's not intended to be personal. So the question is, can we also allow people to challenge what we believe to be true? And in listening, we listen to understand, even though we might, and to empathize, because we might not fully understand what someone else's life is like, but you can empathize with it, not sympathize where it's, oh my gosh, maybe I need to help you, but it's more empathize and help them figure it out. Or maybe they don't even need figuring out. They don't need a solution. They just need someone to hear and empathize. So yeah, those really were my thoughts on the way back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any questions. Thank you as well.
Thank you, Leanne. Well, you're getting applause, I see, at least. So thank you for sharing. And I
Yeah.
must say, for an only child, but also a human being, I think you share a lot and you listen well. So you've trained yourself perfectly. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
these thoughts and for kicking off also our session. And I saw there were a few people still joining. We have started with listening to the observations and reflections by Leanne. And just to point out to all of you, there will be time for networking at the end of the session. So we are asking you to, be part of this interactive session, but there will also be a time where you can just talk freely with everyone. But for now, thank you so much, Leanne. Sit back, catch your breath, and listen to the next speaker, because we are now moving, sorry, I need to click on this one, into the deep listening part where we will listen to more African perspectives. And I still invite you to open your mind, listen, and just really pay full attention. So listen actively if you like. But this time I also encourage you to perhaps grab a pen and paper or your mobile phone and, when you reflect on what you hear and allow yourself to feel something also. We just heard, a lot of observations from Leanne already. There's something that you consider, which is more than just thinking with your brain, if you like, think with your heart, if that didn't sound so strange. But also just write down keywords already, because at the end of our second speaker, well, third really, I will also invite you to share your reflections and the keywords that you write down. So listen, but listen actively and take notes along the way. Our next speaker that I would like to introduce is Kathy Lativa, who is calling in from an airport. So we have a lot of travel and reflections during traveling here. Kathy, you can introduce yourself much better than I can do. So I will invite you to unmute and share who you are and where you're calling in from. But let's just say Kathy is driving sustainable development, women empowerment, and the transition to a circular economy, particularly in Africa, but not restricted to one continent. This is a very global person we have on board. Kathy, please unmute, all yours.
Hi everyone, good morning. So I'm Kathy Latiwa, originally from the DRC Congo. I'm calling from Amsterdam. I just came from New York from the CFW70, going back to Nairobi where I live, and I'm happy to see someone from Nairobi. I hope we can connect while I will be there. This is a very important topic for me now, since my background is business law and I've been working in implementing program in gender inclusion, in governance and development with international organizations like United Nations, European Union, Business Network. Our focus was to empower social economic women empowerment. And since 3 years, I dive into the green transition and circular economy, and we are really passionate about it, my partner and I, because we want to advance and to make sure that women and anyone, any business person, entrepreneur is leader, African are leader in the circular economy, and empower 1 million entrepreneur by 2030. We hope together we can achieve these objectives. So growing up in Africa, throwing things away was never an option. I'm sure some who grows in Africa knows about it. If something broke, you will fix it. If you don't need something, someone else need it. They will reuse it. And if it still had value, it will find a second life. So long before we had a name for it, we were already living the circular economy. So it's not new, it's not a new concept. So when the world talk about circularity today, sometimes we smile, because I remember already 15 years ago, we were working on recycling in Nigeria when I was living there, turning textile waste into furniture, etc. So what is new today, it's the recognition of the circular economy, the structure of the circular economy. Some current impact across sector I would like to share today is, for example, waste and recycling. Over 60% of waste collection and recycling is driven by informal workers. Textile and fashion second-hand clothing market employs over 1 million across Africa. And in repair economy, up to 70 and 80% of electronics are repaired and reused in many cities. And you know all the story of sending your old computer to a cousin who cannot afford it when you can buy a new one. This is new for Africa, and I'm sure for some other countries. So in the food systems, informal markets distribute supply daily. So the circular economy is not a new concept in Africa. The real question here is, how do we structure? How do we scale and invest in what already exists in Africa? Today, the system is massive, but also invisible, fragmented, and underfunded. So what Builder a Future is doing, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Builder a Future Circular Academy and consulting firm. As I said, we are empowering and supporting female entrepreneurs, 75% of women-led and 25% of youth people with disability, to be leader in the circular economy, to scale the businesses in agribusiness, food security, in waste management, and in renewable energy. We turn existing circular practices into structured economic opportunities, especially for women. Some case studies, a woman collect textile waste, repair and upscale garments, and sell them informally. The challenges here is what? No stable pricing, no access to buyers. Yes, nowadays the trend is coming up, giving second life to clothes, but the scale of the market is not what we will need. It's not what we have, because this is a culture. Sorry. Hello? Yeah.
We can
Hello,
still
can
hear
you
you.
hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
yes. Sorry. So you will hear some noises because I'm at the airport. So that case study is saying true. So there's no stable prices, no access to buyers, even if nowadays the trend is there, no enough capital for this kind of market. So through Builder a Future, we try to gain design and business skills, not only skills, because mentorship and skill acquisition is something, but sponsorship, and it's another thing, is opening access to market, to other markets, to those entrepreneurs. The product also need to be aggregated into collections that we are trying to do. Access to global buyers. This is something also Builder a Future is trying to do, as we are partner with different organizations like the COMESA, the COMFWAB, with 21 countries, who organize fairs 2 to 3 times a year. I think some of you knows about them. We have partner in Ireland like Invest Her Summits, who organize also fair for to open markets to circular businesses. But why collaboration is very important, talking about Africa and circularity, and a few things. So collaboration is very important because businesses need to scale. And for businesses to scale in circular economy, we need to shape the policies. And that's what I think ASEAN is doing, is contributing to shape the policies. And to shape the policies, they need to collaborate with organizations like me, like the lady who just come before me, I forgot her name, to know the reality of the market, the gaps of the market, and also organizations like Catalyst Now connect to capital from Africa to global capital and regional capital. Fragmented activities become coordinated system and scales economy when we work together, because we coordinate, we know from best practices, we know issues we have in each region in the circular economy. And here, what we were talking about is policies, access to markets, and access to finance. And the risk, if we don't act today, is what? Continued low income cycle. As you know, 60% of entrepreneurs are in the informal sector, and if we don't connect them to become formal and to participate in the economy, we are losing a big amount of money of economy in our country. Unsupported businesses. So of course, organizations like mine, like many that existed, support businesses. They need just to be structured and to collaborate. There can be also loss of economy value that I said, I talked about it earlier. Mindset, the mindset shifts. It's very important to work on the mindset shift. How? Through advocacy, and I think that's what ASEAN and Catalyst Now is doing, through advocacy on the value and the opportunity of the circular economy in different sectors. And also to know that circular economy is not only question of waste, plastic waste, textile waste, etc. It is about jobs, industrial transformation, and is inclusive growth. And what's the way forward? The way forward here, I think, is one, the policies, to work on policies, work with governments. For example, Builder a Future on is consulting firm is advising ministries and public and private sector on what can be implemented or what can be designed to allow the markets access to a good business environment for circular industries. So recognize informal workers and support circular businesses and policies. Two, advocacies, as I said it, shift perception from informal to essential. And three, the structures, build market access and financing system. And for that, we need collaboration with other regions. So the final call, there is a lot to say on these circular practices in Africa, since we've been training women in Nigeria, in the DRC Congo. Is that partnership is key. Deep collaboration and aligned ecosystem are essential, because these industries are themselves already an ecosystem that need to be a structure. So Africa is not behind talking about circular economy. It's already leading informally the circular economy. Now we must structure it. We must work together to structure it properly, invest in it, and scale it. Because if we do that, we don't just reduce waste, but we build economies. There is a lot to say. I will put my LinkedIn to talk more about what's our action in the sector. And please don't hesitate. If you have any questions, send me a message. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you for sharing from what's happening, what's going on, the informality, being a leader in circular economy in Africa, or Africa as a leader, and structuring it. That was not an attempt to summarizing it. I hope all of you took your own notes, but I do appreciate you calling in, and please do share your details, as due to some changes in the travel schedule, Kathy is now in between two flights and still manages to call in. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Enjoy Amsterdam Airport. It's a good one. And have a good flight home. Now, You all know this is a co-organized event by African Circular Economy Network and Catalyst Now. Kathy represented this part of Catalyst Now. She also referred to it in her speech. And I would also like now to hand over to my co-moderator, Anka Luka, who you also heard, but she has not had a chance yet to present herself. And she will do so now and also talk about Catalyst Now a bit so that you know who the organizations behind this event are.
Thank you, Tova. And a big thank you already to Lana for setting the frame and to Kathy for sharing more about what you're doing. I already took a few notes about the keywords, but I will not share them now because I would not like to influence the rest of the participants in the call. But maybe first, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Anka. I am based in Amsterdam, Netherlands. And I am chair of Catalyst Now for the Dutch chapter. And I also have my own initiative called The Roots, which is a design agency focused on using technology design and ethics to bridge social gaps in society. But now I would really like to spend the next minute or so to just introduce Catalyst very quickly. So Catalyst is a global movement of social change makers whose main focus is really working together towards advancing the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals worldwide. When we're looking at global, I think that the numbers that we have on the screen right now already speak for themselves. We're looking at more than 4,500 member organizations from 157 countries and territories represented. Talking a little bit about the vision and the mission, maybe moving to the next slide, Tova, if you can. The focus is very much on creating communities. Communities is at the center of everything that we're doing in Catalyst and together with social innovation. And the main mission is very much on co-creating spaces like this one, where we enable different actors of the social impact sector to connect, collaborate, and really grow together. And if we're looking at our approach, Tova, if you can move to the last slide, please. You can see the four main pillars that we're having when we're looking at building communities that are powered by social innovation. First and foremost is really all about this co-creating and creating these enabling environments. And we're doing this very much by being focused on collaborations and taking action together. And this also goes very much hand in hand with facilitating learning and system change and focusing on the well-being of all of our members. This is a very short introduction. Please feel free to explore further if this sounds interesting. And right now, I will hand it over to Katarina to also mention a few words about ASEAN.
Thanks so much, Anka and Tove, and thank you so much, guys, for organizing this with us. I think it's really lovely that these two networks can actually meet and co-create together such a session. So I'm very excited to learn about Catalyst now and what you guys are busy with, because I think there's definitely some intersection there, especially what Kathy and Leanne have already mentioned really resonates with us as the African Circular Economy Network. So our vision is to build a restorative African economy that generates well-being and prosperity inclusive of all its people. So again, there is a very strong focus on the community aspect, which in the circular economy discussion, especially if we're looking at previous discussions over the last 10 years, was very much focused on resources, not so much about people. And I think it is quite key, right? We don't want a linear system that's just being painted in a green color, but at the end of the day, we're still leaving communities behind. So ASEAN was founded about 10 years ago, and we are represented across 42 African countries, have more than 1,000 members. And it has taken almost 9.5 years of actually volunteering time to build the network out as well. So there's lots of sweat and tears by the co-founders and all the volunteering members that have built the network. But it is really bearing its fruits, and it also speaks to the policy development and the interlinkages with different communities. We can go to the next slide and I can quickly speak about our approaches. So we have 3 strategic priorities. The first one is connect. That's really our network. So to make sure that we're connecting with the right members on the ground, individuals and organizations. And sometimes we just actually convene or facilitate conversations between the right members or organizations. And then we are not actually expected anymore to be in the discussion, which is also lovely. And then the second priority is really empower, and that's around the knowledge sharing, the skills and the tools needed for a circular economy transition. And I think Kathy already mentioned circular economy is quite innate to Africa, but we're also seeing that the way of doing things, of repairing and making sure things stay in circulation is actually being lost. So there's also a key question, how can we preserve that while making sure people actually live a decent life? So I think this is very, very important, but then obviously it also speaks to understanding circularity as a more holistic concept than merely as a waste management concept. So that speaks to our stakeholders, which also then includes the policymakers, but also businesses. And then the third pillar, which I think is really key to this discussion, is model transformation. So we also implement projects, but the long-term view is really to create programs that are more regionally focused, that we have a bigger impact and that are not only donor dependent, because we always then run the risk. We have a program for a few years, which is lovely, but obviously what is the deep impact of that? And I think that is quite critical to collaborate with the different organizations on the ground to make sure we are also working on transformative programs so that we can actually achieve transformation at the end of the day. So these are our strategic priorities. You're also more than welcome to obviously reach out to ASIN and become a member of ASIN and join any of the other webinars that we are hosting and connect with obviously all the other speakers online today. So thank you so much again to Anke and Tove. And now I have the pleasure to actually hand over to one of the co-founders of ASIN, and that is Sally. So Sally, over to you.
Thanks, Katarina, and hello to everybody online today. And I'm joining you from very far away, but I'm originally from South Africa, Cape Town. And yeah, Leanne, I'm sorry, when you mentioned Table Mountain, I almost cried. So I feel you. So my focus this morning is really going to try and bring in some of what we've already heard, but use a couple of examples along the way to put or embed some practicalities into what we're trying to say. So what I really want to talk about is resilience, especially in the face of uncertainty. We're seeing again just how much disruption happens when global supply chains have a wobble. And I'm not mentioning anything specific about what's happening right now in the world that's causing this disruption. However, it's happening, and it affects all of us on some sort of level at some sort of time, because so much of what we do is intricately connected to these global supply chains. And in the way that we make our food, make our clothes, get around, all these things. So I want to reflect on just how we can look about circularity, about not only just closing those material loops, and we started in talking about what this means, but it's also about opening those economic opportunities, because we are living in an economic space, especially in the more urban environments. But how do we build in that local resilience? And maybe start talking about scale in a slightly different way, because scale doesn't need to be big. It actually could be local context scale as well. So my understanding of circular economy is super broad, and it's really inclusive of all environments, economic, social systems, and it's essentially something circularity has been in operation since the beginning of time. So the world's been doing it in its natural cycles, in all of the different cycles and systems that operate today. There is some sort of circularity or system involved, because there's always these feedback loops, etc. A linear economy, you can argue, has had some impact in the way that these systems have been disrupted. And we can see that on an ecological level, we can see it on a pollution level, we can see it on a waste level. And I just want to see how do we try and buffer ourselves from these shocks. So it's more around a bit of more adaptation and burning and relearning certain skills. And I'm glad that was also raised already as well. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, because I'm really keen to look about the poverty gap in Africa, specifically around a circular economy perspective. And I don't call it this. I wish I came up with a statement, the mathematics of poverty. I read that in a Facebook post this week. Something just popped up into my feed. So I want to tell you a little story. And it was a post from an amazing young woman called Nokuthula Shanga. And she wrote about an interaction she had recently with a woman who read one of her posts. And she essentially wrote of a lucky event. She shared a lucky event where she got an extra 4 loaves of bread in her online shopping. And one of the comments was from this one of her readers was, how I wish such luck would find me. I wish I had bread to eat. And Nokuthula she said that actually broke her. For days after that, this one comment just haunted her. So she tracked the woman down and sent her 100 rand. And then the woman sent her a copy of the receipt of what she had bought. And she had bought 2 loaves of bread, a small packet of sugar, and the cheapest sanitary pads she could find. And again, she observed that small decision, and it revealed something really deep for her. And it's deeper than just hunger. It revealed the mathematics of poverty, and that's what she called it. The brutal calculations that people make every single day just to remain human. And when you have very little, every rand or dollar or whichever currency you're working in becomes a strategy. So every purchase becomes a negotiation about survival. Bread feeds the stomach, sugar stretches the tea, pads protect dignity. So she wasn't shopping, she was balancing life itself. And I think when you start connecting with those kinds of real stories and those realities, that's for me when we need to really start talking about circularity and the systems change that we need. So please look Nokuthula up. I'm happy to share the link. If anyone's keen, she's amazing. And we're hoping to chat this coming week. So anyway, that inspired me to take a very different direction from this discussion that I was originally going to have with you guys. I was going to show you a couple of things, but she set me on a different path, which is great. So now coming to my examples, if we can move to the next slide, it's a very cryptic one that just says biology. And the thing is, because for me, my examples relate to biology. It relates to how we sustain ourselves, bluntly put, in terms of food, sustenance, and also some of the functions as women or as, raising children have. So, and I mentioned in the previous slide, the sanitary pads, but also nappies, right? So traditionally, we didn't, as women, use sanitary pads back in the day, not disposable ones anyway, right? So I'm talking many moons ago. And the thing is, with Industrial Revolution came a few things that were great and things that become more convenient, which made life in the urban environment much more doable, which is great. In many rural communities, you probably find that people still don't necessarily use sanitary pads like we know them, right? So but these disposable items have become more challenging to manage, to deal with. And so essentially, what's also happened is we've created this massive scale of company selling, and we need to buy continuously these consumables that are just part of our natural biology. We want to make sure our babies are safe. We want to make sure that, they don't get these rashes, etc. But there are other ways. And I think just having that access sometimes to these conveniences now has been deterred purely because of price. And that makes me really sad. Because almost in a way, reusables have also had like a status symbol put on them now as well. So you have reusables if you have the access or finances in order to buy them. But does it have to be that way? So if we move on to the next slide, I've got 2 examples of 2 companies. There are many more companies that are doing these things, right? So for sanitary, there are lots of amazing reusable products out there. and not only the pads themselves, there are various other ways that this can be done, but baby nappies too. But what really excites me is the potential opportunity to link community to what's going on, and link community in a local context into the economy. And as a designer, Leanne, I'm looking at you, how perhaps could we stimulate more of these types of projects? For me, local manufacturing or sewing, it could be very simple. We don't have to overcomplicate this, plus reusable materials, plus maybe even a cleaning service to help with the convenience factor, is maybe a potential circular business opportunity. The photo on the left is actually from a project called Kruger Canyons in the Kruger Canyons Biosphere Reserve. And it's a project where a community got together and because there was a massive nappy problem in the area, disposables being dumped into the environment. And essentially the community came together and through co-creation, this project was put together. And ladies who knew how to sew actually could make the nappies and then circulate them to mothers who needed them. I won't go any more into that. If we go on to the next slide, moving to my food example, because I know I don't want to take up, I think I'm close to my time, is really about how we feed ourselves. And often the way that we feed ourselves from a commercial level, we're killing our soils because of the fertilizers we use. And unfortunately, many of our rural farmers or even urban farmers have been pulled into using fertilizers as well because of the large-scale commercial activities or way they've been taught now that you can't grow anything unless you use fertilizer, which is not the case. We know that. You know, fundamentally, we need to be building our soils. If we go on to the next slide, the next slide is really about a project that we, as ASIN, did in Rwanda. And Christou, who's in the background, was one of the people instrumental in this particular project. And what I want you to focus on in the slide, because there's lots going on here, but essentially is the importance of building our soil. And how do we build our soil? Through making sure any kind of organic waste or any kind of organics is going back into the soil. Composting, building that beautiful soil, because essentially then we manage water, then we retain water. And Chris has just put the link into the chat. Please go check it out. It's super cool. So focusing on this slide, really, it's the conservation agriculture, the regenerative nature of that, and looking at soil erosion control, using cover crops, the compost production, and the water management. For me, super exciting developments that can be taught and ingrained pretty easily. No, not easily. I'd love to make sure that it was easy. It's not, but it is. We all know how to do it innately. We just need to get back and connect to those practices again. On the last slide that I'm going to show you today is some of that impact. And I just want to show the job creation opportunities. And job creation for me is always a tricky one, because I kind of think, what is a job? What is a work opportunity? You know, and that's a whole nother debate. But really, it's about how do we connect people back to access of getting that nutrition, building the soil, and doing things fundamentally differently. So with that, I'm going to close, and hopefully we'll have amazing discussions, in the breakouts. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sally. And thank you also for this excellent timekeeping that all of you are showing. I didn't mention, but I'm from Northern Europe, and I do like us to stick to a time schedule. Let's use all the cliches we can right now. I don't know about you guys, but I actually, when Sally said, okay, next slide, I had to put down my pen because I was taking notes, because there were a lot of interesting things being shared here. And as already mentioned, I would also like to invite you to share your reflections. Up on the screen right now, you should be able, if you are watching on a screen and you have your mobile phone in your hand, to just scan the QR code. It will take you to Menti, where you can enter your keywords and your reflections from the 3 speakers we've had, what sort of comes to mind? What made an impression on you? What did you recognize? What was new to you or new thinking? What would you like to encourage happening? What was actually quite scary? And did you find, oh, I'm doing that too? So it can be anything. These are your reflections. There's no right or wrong. There's no show off and, oh, I didn't get it. Everything is good. If you are on a laptop or similar, you can also go to menti.com and you enter the code 25019938. And again, you will be able to share. I'll leave this up for a little while and then I will stop sharing this screen so that we can see what we're doing with your reflections. So all of us together, we will create a word cloud from it. So I will let you all access it and start sharing, which is why I'll leave this up. And also after this session, we will share insights and input with all of you in a follow-up email. So you will also get the full word cloud. I'll leave that up throughout the session. But also curious to see it now if you guys access it. And I see some smiles and activity going on behind muted microphones. So I'm taking it that you are working on it. And should you for some reason have problems getting in, feel free to share in the chat. I will manually add them to the word cloud afterwards. Okay, I will stop sharing for now and see if I can find our word cloud online. Give me a shout if I'm too early.
Tove, Krista also posted
Yes.
it in the chat, so people still have access to the code and the
Perfect.
link.
Even better. And as we are still sharing, let me attempt to share what it looks like right now, but I know this will change as more people will add their reflections. You should see it now. I'm sure you're familiar with these, but basically it means the bigger the word, the more people have entered it. So I have a lot of really individual reflections here. And there's one standing out. Okay. Thank you all of you for being active and joining in. I will stop sharing again, but I will keep Menti open. So please continue. But we, of course, have lots more activities for you guys today. So I will hand over to Anka, who will guide us through the next activities.
All right. Thank you so much, Tova. And again, a very big thank you to our speakers. Already so much food for thought. Also amazing to see in the Menti word cloud that the biggest word was mindset shift. So I think that then we are really in the right space right now. And with that in mind, I would actually like to invite you to the very interactive and collaborative part of the session. And I would love to, if you would keep everything that you've heard already so far together with you and channel it in the conversations that we will have in smaller groups. But before getting ahead of ourselves, first of all, I would like to ask our colleague Christo if you can already share the mirror link in the chat. And I will quickly walk you through what will that actually entail. Before going into the content of the exercise itself, we would also really love to set a little bit of a frame in terms of the house rules and the values that we would love to encourage you to embrace while talking with the other participants in here. So we would really love to invite you to listen to understand, not respond, especially when the perspectives different from your own. Also, please do speak from your own experience by using I and we now in my organizations, not moving towards a perspective of othering, like people or they. You might be faced in certain conversations, maybe with some discomfort. If that is the case, yeah, we would really like to congratulate you. I think that you're doing something well. And we would like to invite you to sit with that discomfort, because that also tells us a lot and teaches us a lot. And last but not least, no savior narratives, avoiding framing that positions anyone as the solution for someone else's problem. So with these general guidelines and values in mind, we would like to invite you to split in smaller groups and to reflect on a few main topics, like looking at narratives and biases, power dynamics, and narrative shifts. And in here, we came up with a few questions, more as guiding questions, but also by all means, please do not feel limited by this, right? So if you want to expand your conversations, by all means, do that. These are in here just with the desire to guide you in your conversation. And I will go into more details actually on the Miro board. If anyone has any issues with accessing the Miro board, please do let us know, and we will support you with that. And meanwhile, I will shift my screen to the Miro board. Can you please let me know that you are actually seeing the right screen? Can you see the Miro board right now? All right. I see a few nods. Tova, yes?
I don't see it shared, but maybe others do.
No.
No.
Are
All
you
right.
sharing? Yeah.
Let's try this again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay,
Now we can.
wonderful.
Yes.
Great. So maybe very quickly presenting the space in Miro. We have a reflection space, and afterwards we will have a building together space. The focus will really be for now on the reflection space. We will break the group in a few breakout rooms. So I would assume maybe 5 or 6 crystal would be enough for the size of this group right now. And you can see the number of the breakout room right here on top. And when you will be in the breakout room, you will also see in the breakout room the number. So that should be easy to guide. But then again, if you have any questions, one of us will be in with you in the breakout rooms as well. So we will support you with that. So basically, what we would like to invite for you to do right now would be to spend 10 minutes together doing something that seems simple, but actually it's not that easy. And that is looking honestly at the assumptions that you carry into conversations about circular economy. As I mentioned in the slides as well, we prepared a few questions and a few guiding prompts. When it comes to the narrative bias, we would like to ask you as a guiding question if there is any language that you use to describe circular practices in African context, and what does that language assume? And I think that we actually already had a very few good examples in the presentations that we've had. Whether we call, so we have second markets, repair shops, and material reuse networks, and they're widely spread and deeply embedded across African cities. And whether we call them resilient circular infrastructure or the informal sector actually changes quite a lot about the way that we engage with them. So this is just an example. In terms of the power dynamics, the question that we have in here would be whose knowledge gets built into the tools, and how do we use to measure the circular progress, and last but not least, who gets left out. And on terms of the narrative shift, what would change in how we work if we approach African circular practices as a sort of insight rather than a context to apply solutions to? Each of these questions has a small example below, just as an inspiration. And the steps that we would like to recommend to you, again, nothing is set in stone. Do what feels right for you and your group. You could potentially start with a small reflection, like a couple of minutes. We will put it in here, and then a group discussion. You could leave for each of the section. You could leave your input in here. So in order to write, you can just double click on one of the stickies and just start typing. If there are not enough stickies, you can always go and duplicate the sticky. Again, if you are running into any sort of issues, please do let us know. And with this, I actually think that I covered everything. Also looking at my co-moderator Tova, if I missed anything in terms of explaining the content in here.
I think it's clear. And I think the questions will come when we enter the breakout rooms, but fortunately there will be enough of us there also to guide you along.
All right. Shall we?
Perfect. Okay, Angat, so I have assigned everyone to a room. I just want to say if anyone is not assigned to a room, because I can see sometimes because of the device that you are logging in with, sometimes you can't access a breakout room. So just feel free to stay in the room if you are not assigned automatically. But for that, I will open the rooms. Have fun.
Thank you, Krista.
Thank you, Krista.
Okay. Guys, I see the speakers aren't assigned automatically. So I think we can just pop into a room where there are people needed. Because I also see because of people dropping off, some of the rooms might not have
People.
might not have a lot of people.
How do we get to a room?
Oh, there's a button. Oh, you explain, Christy.
At the top. I think at the top you can just click on rooms.
Oh, I've had this before and I don't find it.
Oh, you can't see it.
No, I see.
It's next to notes. If that helps.
Is it?
And we have a question, I think.
Yeah, same here. I don't know where to access the breakout room.
I think maybe the participants that are still in this room, I think you guys are the ones that cannot be assigned. So maybe Tovi, you can just stay here with them then.
That's a good idea.
Maybe that's the plan.
I think that's sort of sorted itself. Yes, let's stay here.
Perfect.
And Sally, Katrina, Krista, you will jump into different rooms?
Yes,
I'll go to room. I'll go to room 4, if that helps.
Perfect.
We can't hear you,
Katrina,
Katrina.
you're muted.
I said, sorry guys, I said I go to room 3 then, Sally.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
I'll see you just now.
I'm in 2.
And which one can I take, Krista? Which one is
This
not
one
taken?
Here. This one here, I think you can just use
Yeah.
this one. But then
on Miro.
Yeah, but on Miro, I think we only have 4 rooms, so then you can use breakout room 5, sorry.
5. So
Yeah.
5 for you, Toby.
I will be 5.
Yeah.
Together with the plenary team. Okay, have fun, people.
Awesome. See ya.
Perfect.
See ya. So that means, Natasha, I already heard you, so you can hear me, I think.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. And Mugamba, can you also hear me? Because I saw you raised your hand at some point. Can you access the Miro board? Oh, now I hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Can both of you access the Miro board?
The mirror board, I can't seem to find that as well.
I will share the link again in the chat for us. Oh, let me quickly chat. Oh, does not work. If you scroll up a bit, because for some reason I couldn't put it in there. Where is it? Otherwise, what we can do is that... Can you find it?
Yeah.
So I don't know, for some reason the chat is blocked from me at the moment. It is called Miro board.
Different links, but
let me see if I scroll up. Natasha, can you find it?
it was sent by you.
No, it was sent earlier, and it's called Reframing, preview for reframing the circle, and it says Miro board on top.
Yeah, I've been able to find it.
Maybe you can manage to put it in there, because for some reason I cannot put it in the chat right now.
Okay, let me see if I can do that.
And otherwise, look for Miro.
Oh yes, I think I have.
You find it?
Yes.
And there we can go to breakout room 5. Number 5 is ours. Nikki, did you just join in? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I did just join in.
Would you like to be part? Oh, you cannot really reflect if you didn't hear the speeches. We're reflecting on Miro board, but if you like, you can click on the link to Miro if you scroll up a bit in the chat. But maybe you cannot see it, and for some reason I cannot share it, which is a bit
thank
odd.
you.
Let me
Thanks, I'll find it.
Let me copy it again and.
Yeah, because we are sort of the plenary group, let's say. So we're not in a breakout room. We're just tend to stay in the plenary because there were some issues getting there. So we're the plenary breakout room, and that is number 5. So when we go to Miro, we will be on number 5.
Okay, thanks.
If you like, I can share my screen, but if we are all now, can you find your way to breakout room 5?
Mine is still loading.
Okay, because there we can start sharing the sticky notes. I see someone from us there, I think, a visiting painter in our breakout room 5 on the narrative and bias. So what language do we use to describe circular practices in African contexts, and what does that language assume? So if you find a sticky note, feel free to start entering something. What language do we use? I mean, we heard a lot during the conversations.
Mine is lagging. I haven't been able to get into.
If you like,
loading, but,
I can fill in for you if you like. So are there any words that you would like to add on languages? We have one entering, maybe that's Natasha, I'm not sure. Secondhand markets, is that you, Natasha? Feel free to stay unmuted all the time and just join in.
Could you say that again, please?
So we're entering now. Let me share perhaps here my screen so you can see it. Yes, Natasha, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking on the languages. Are we using our what we call them in our local languages, or we are using the English word, or we're using the what we call them in our local language?
I think both are good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to share local languages, yes, perfect. And you can add the English translation if you like.
Okay.
But we have secondhand markets on our screen. Something you would like to add? Because I can type if you cannot enter the board.
Yeah, I think I'll give my thought here, and then you could help me type. I think.
Yeah.
I think in our language, in my context, in the Ugandan context, circular would mean mivumba. MIVUBA.
MIVUBA. M, sorry.
Yeah.
M-I?
Mivumba.
Mivumba. And what
Yeah,
does it mean?
Mivumba. Mivumba is kind of still like still second hand, and kind of in places where you can like thrift markets. That has been kind of the arrangement, and I think this might not go into this, but I think part of this conversation that I was really interested in with the experiences that were being shared from South Africa is that we need to build a trade movement that is away from that perspective that we have as Africa. Okay, not as Africa, but in the Ugandan context, I would imagine we need to have a conversation that is away from second-handedness and understanding how important it is to circulate resources, to not get rid of old things, because as the times have moved on, that has been the trend. So to build a positive spin on it and have a trade movement that moves into that specific direction of circularity.
Exactly. So we need a different name. Let's see. Power dynamics, who knowledge gets built on, which tools, and narrative shift. I'm going to now go to the blue sticker here and need for new name. I'm saying. I'm just typing what I hear you say. What would change in how you work on your approach to African circular practice as a source of insight rather than a context to apply solutions to? So I think need new name, and you say also move away from recycling, right? Or second hand?
That's not really to move away, but like for people to understand circularity beyond second-hand items, to understand that even in the home, as we use home like home resources, we could circulate those in order to save, because usually it is thought about just as that. So to think about it beyond that.
True. I see the breakout rooms will be closing, so I already stopped sharing because everyone else will jump in. It was very short, but I think we got some initial thoughts actually. And Nikki and Natasha, if you are in Miro, please continue typing your thoughts. I will see if I can scroll in on that 1 second. Mivumba. Yeah, we have some thoughts.
All right, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My hands, my fingers.
Exactly. I will do that in the next one as well, because we have other breakout rooms coming up. So we can stay in the plenary group. And
all right.
though I'm not sure why we're not getting back, because if we're not getting back, everyone seems to be typing still. Let's see. Oh. Let me see. So we should get people back from the breakout rooms. Hi, there you are, Krista. I was just going to text you. We need to get people back.
Yes, we were in quite a deep discussion there, so I will close the rooms now.
Thank you. Because I cannot find them. I don't know if I have it in. I should open it in the browser. Then I have it. I opened it in my app. But thank you.
There we go.
Brilliant. It's a good sign, though, isn't it, if we're too deep in conversation?
We had a great discussion. We tried to capture a few notes, but I
know that's the tricky part. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope that you had some valuable conversations in the breakout rooms. Maybe giving a bit more time, making sure that everyone is back. I still see people joining back into the room. And maybe I would like to take a moment to invite whoever wants to share anything from the breakout room to share it with us. Were there any big takeaways? Was there any maybe aha moment in there? Anything that already maybe you felt a little bit challenged? Yeah, I would really, really love to hear from you.
Maybe I'll share something. Oh, sorry, you go first, Kathy.
No. Okay, cool.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead. As I'm still here, using the opportunity. Please go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, I'll go first then. Something that we came, it doesn't necessarily fit into very nicely into one of these columns that we had in the Miro board, but a aha moment that Suzanne shared with us, and we've mentioned that ASIN a few times previously as well, is we need to talk more about resource security, not necessarily just the material side of things, but the resource security. And also including the human resources, because that's something that's many times missing from the circular economy discussion, is the human part of it. So we went into quite a nice deep discussion in room 2 about that topic.
Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, we also continued the discussion on the human resources, and we spoke about the resource curse, and also why is it that in Africa there is such an inequity of wealth, and how could we address that, because that is at the heart of a lot of injustice as well. So the idea was perhaps we need to, and that's why I actually started out speaking about Yelma, because he is a metabolic analysis specialist, and we did some amazing work, Sally and myself. But perhaps what we need is a map, a baseline map of the flows of a resource-cursed country. All the money coming in from selling, where's the money going? Who's taking it? How much is actually reaching the bottom? And if we find that out and have that evidence as a baseline to perhaps figure out what are our circular economy intervention angle points to change certain things, to create more local self-reliance and more wealth in terms of abundance, not necessarily of finances, but local self-reliance, power in people, that currently just losing out.
So many important topics already, like local self-reliance, power in people. Please keep on sharing and building on top of each other. Thank you, Suzanne. I also know that 10 minutes is very little time for such deep conversations, but we really hope that this is more to spark the conversations. Yes, Kathy?
Yes, no, the conversation was very interesting because I think it's Susan, or she was sharing, not Susan, Samantha. Samantha was sharing her frustration about access to funds, about youth and women not having access to funds, about the reality in the market. Maybe Katarina will explain more, but I just wanted to emphasize about that when we are talking about diversity and inclusion in circular economy or any other things, they say that you give the room to women or to youth, but giving the room or youth and women participating doesn't not mean that they have power. That's why here we are talking about policies, because power give everything. Power can change system. Power can implement a program of frameworks that can allow access to finance and access to opportunities, etc. So here I just wanted to say, yes, of course, there's still gaps, but we can be hopeful on what is being implementing so far. Even if we have only 25% of seats held by women in parliamentary globally, still we are trying to push. For example, in the Congo right now, the financial system say that it need to be 50% of women and youth in the position in banks or etc., etc. Even for funding projects, you need to make sure you have 50% of women-led or women and youth projects who have been funded. So yes, it's not easy. Yes, we still have a long way to go, but there is things going that have been implemented slowly and slowly. So about the fund, where the funds are going, that's a very good question, because to get a fund, you need to be structured. And many of the businesses are not structured. That's what the many incubators, including Builder a Future, are doing, helping business-led to be structured, one, but two, also to get ready to be investable and bankable, because there is so many conditions they're giving. That's two. Three is there is also guarantee funds. Many women guarantee funds are put together so that they can be the guarantee of small businesses who cannot get direct the fund from the big donors or from the big investors. It's going through a platform or a venture or an organization who is guarant for those small businesses. So it's just opportunity is there. It's just access to this opportunity. That's why many platforms as Builder a Future is identifying businesses, circular businesses, making sure that they're investable and bankable, or getting them ready to be investable and bankable, and giving them the opportunity, access to network and opportunities, to information, because and that's where also collaboration and partnership are important, so that you have one database of information and condition and what to do to get to those funds. So policies is very important. Having equal power, decision making in policies is also very important, because if you have only male and not enough youth or women, they cannot implement enough policies for them. So information, access to opportunity, and network, because network is net worth, is also market. That's important, because skills and solution are there. It's not like skills are not there in Africa. We've been giving skills for 15 years. I can tell you, I'm working in gender and inclusion since 15 years with UN, EU, all those programs. But then what once you give them skills, what do they do with the skills? They have already those solutions. They have all those new industry. What do they do with it if they don't have access to those market and to those opportunity or to those rooms where they can get the solution? So yes, that's what I wanted to share. Just thank you.
Thank you so much, Katia. And I could not agree more with the importance of actually having the platform to be able to to have access to power, to be able to exercise the power, and to be able to contribute by ourselves. Thank you so much to everyone who shared. Yes, Sally?
Last little comments, because I think these are
Last
important.
little comment.
Little ones. So our group first got to know each other before jumping straight into the conversation. So we didn't maybe write down as much, but what we did write down, I think were fairly significant thoughts. One being that often, especially in the narrative, waste pickers, and this was, and we're starting to see this as well in a South African context as well because of what we're doing. But from Amadou, he mentioned that actually he was doing some work with some of the waste pickers, and in understanding the reference to waste picking and the language and the origin of the words that people are using. And what was really interesting is that they don't see it as a negative way of working necessarily. And the way that it was described was beautiful. And it was one of the Senegalese words, which I don't remember that word, which I think, Amadou, if you could write or send it in the message. He basically said the base of the word is like a river after flood, and what it leaves behind, that's what the waste picker would collect. And that's what the waste river is, right? So, which I thought is like absolutely, that is super cool and has to be said here. So I'm going to please, there we go. Thank you very much. And then something that Panya said was, and this is just the aha moment, was that regenerative farming is actually part of circularity, which is, you know, it's often seen as separate, right? Especially in an African context. And you kind of go like, what? Whereas I think because maybe that's just, it is still practiced in some rural communities, but maybe not so much in the commercial space or the urban space. And let me just make sure, the other ones we've kind of touched on and what other people have said, but does anybody in our group want to contribute before we shut down? Amadou, Panya, and now I have...
Maybe the market access aspect also.
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I was saying that sometimes those who are the most invested in the, the grassroots actors do not take profit of the payoff of the activity. They are the one who, they face the most the hardship of the work, but the gain is not as it should be because of the middlemen, etc. Before it gets to the final buyer. Yeah.
Thank you. That's us.
Thank you so much, Sally. Katerina? Maybe one more minute, 2 more minutes of reflection.
Okay, I'll be very quick. So also Samantha said something because she works on water points and enabling people to have these skills and maintain them and then actually opening up new ones. I hope I did understand that correctly. But she says also, I don't want to hear project anymore. And I think this is what we have been grappling with as a network personally as well. It's like, we are super dependent actually on project work to keep on running the network and doing the webinars and making sure we can pay people a little bit of money as well. And it's so difficult because we want to run these long-term initiatives and we kind of exactly know what needs to happen with all the other partnering networks. So it's not like that the knowledge only lies with us, but I think we have a good knowledge and people in the different countries on the ground from grassroots to the policy level. And then it's so frustrating that you have to fight sometimes so badly, even for a few $1,000 US to get something up and going. But then you have actually donors coming to you and wanting to spend hours of your time to actually connect you to everyone on the ground. And you're like, but like, why can't we do it as an African-led organization? Because we know the insights. And I think this is something we've been deeply grappling with as a network, because we are on one hand dependent on these projects to make sure we can run these initiatives. So I completely resonate with Samantha. It's about, long-term initiatives where we can upscale everyone else and upskill everyone else so that they have these skills. And then it connects with Kathy, what she said around giving them access to the opportunities and to the markets and the right connections as well. So I think this is closing quite nicely the loop.
Thank you, Katerina. Kathy, I see that you still have your hand up. Do you still want to comment?
I think... No, I think Katarina said it all. I wanted just to emphasize on that, when we are talking about access to capital or all the funds coming to project, etc., is also, I think we had this conversation with Tove at our first call. It's, the donors, when they come or when they send people, they don't really liaise with the local. They don't really sometimes understand the needs, and they are coming with the models and what they think that will work. No, you need to understand the local content and the context environment of each countries and what their needs. And for that, you need to collaborate with the local who are in the sector, for example, agriculture, etc. And then you can see how to allocate. And also this amount of allocation they're giving to project or to industry rate sometimes is ridiculous. Excuse me, when you give 10,000 for someone who want to scale up and then open this market, it doesn't work. The time is structured properly. He produces, then he distributes. This 10,000 is done, and you want him to pay it back in a month coming. So we need to review those systems, and that's why really these days I'm sure that the blended finance is very important. Not only counting on funding and donors, but also how to make business and make value of the product and what we have. It's very important. And also so we need to review that way of funding or even investing. We need to adapt it to the local content, the context, the environment, and the needs or the opportunity. I will say the opportunity of the market. And I just put it there. There is one organization who is very good, ABAN, African Business Angel Network. So it's a group of many local African investors who invest in climate tech, in regenerative agriculture, and many other circular industries. So please go and have a look on it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you, everyone. I still see a few hands up, and I would really, really love to continue the conversation, but we have one more exercise that we think will really wrap up the entire session quite nicely. So I would like to invite you back on Miro. Maybe if you can share the link again in the chat really quickly. And meanwhile, I will share my screen again. Also, we did save a little bit of extra time also just for networking towards the end of the event. So please do know that there is more space to continue these conversations. Can you see my screen? Yes, wonderful. So the same, I will quickly walk you through the board. I think that Sally already mentioned. I think, can you hear me well? I think someone is not muted, maybe.
There's some
Can you put
music
mute?
going on.
Yes. Sally, I think you already mentioned the aha moment. So I would really like to invite each group to think about their aha moment. And an aha moment is really not about a new fact or any novelty, but even actually more about something that maybe you already know, but the way that you look at it shifts through the conversation that you just had. So I would like to invite you to identify that that moment, that insight, that aha insight, and then ask you yourself two questions and your group. So what? So what does it happen now that you have identified it? What does that open up in how you think, how you work, how you collaborate? And the last question, now what? So what can we do to move forward from here? And potential structure, again, please don't feel confined by the structure that we provide. In terms of maybe defining a few values on how to move forward would be we believe and therefore we commit. And in each of the boards, you will see a small example, just as inspiration. Potential aha moment would be that we talk about inclusive partnerships, but somehow our timelines, languages, reporting formats are designed from a completely different perspective, right? So what? So what does that mean? So these would open up potentially a different way of thinking about partnership, not as who we invite in, but how we design the space that they are invited into. And then it really points towards the process design as a form of power sharing. And in terms of the values, so now what? We believe that inclusion starts with how we design our process. Therefore, we commit the co-designing partnership structures with African actors from the onset, not as an afterthought. So with this example presented, I would like to invite you back to the breakout rooms. I think we will be a little bit late. Sorry about that. And I will see you back in here in around 10 minutes.
we have the same plenary group. Natasha Mugamba, you still here?
Yep, I'm here. Yes, I'm still here.
Perfect. Let's continue from where we left off. Any one of you have one of those aha moments that you think like, oh yeah, that was what we were saying. I know what we were saying. One of the things was that we need to move beyond seeing it as secondhand, but of course we've heard a lot of different inputs since then. Anyone wants to pick up one aha moment that we can use for our purposes?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the aha moments is that where they're saying in Africa or in our localities, we have been using the principles of circular economy, only that maybe we didn't have the word for it.
Yeah.
Because when you look at other indigenous knowledge or the things that you were told, don't do this because if you do this, this is what will happen, or practice this. This practice will lead to this. And when you look at that kind of practice using that indigenous knowledge, you find that, yeah, that's circular economy in they've just given it that name to say, oh, this is circular economy. But we have been, to me, that was what my aha moment was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one. There's a lot about, I mean, circularity really comes from the global north because we didn't really practice it. So we needed to give it a name in order to start doing it. And then we figured nobody else is doing it. Well, as you say, Africa is full of good examples of how it's been done, right? Would this be a good one? Anything else? I'm typing now. I don't know if you see the screen because I decided to go on Miro and I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, at least I'm able to see your screen, what you're typing. Yeah.
Would you be happy with how I framed it? I mean, you can go on Miro too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You've framed it well.
I've just I decided to be the secretary.
Yes.
Mugamba, would you like to add something? Or happy to run with this one as our aha moment?
I'm sorry, I'm also in another meeting, so I was trying to move on. So,
okay.
I do have an aha moment, and it aligns with what we had discussed earlier, in terms of I think again I'll go back to the South African example that was provided.
Yeah,
it is true. Africa needs opportunities. There are a lack of opportunities. There are people that do want to be a part of something that do lack opportunities, and to build a strong circular economy movement, it has to go hand in hand with creating an economic movement around it that will provide opportunities. So opportunities to the people that are most marginalized in our context, and it has been mentioned again, the women, the youth, who are the most vulnerable in our context. And you can hear me?
Yes, I'm typing.
Okay.
I'm saying,
yeah.
So circular economy movement needs economic opportunities in African contexts to work, including women and youth.
Yes. So that is the aha moment. And I think there was the next option that speaks to, so what should we do about that? And then what do we commit to do?
Yeah.
So what I believe that we have to do, and as Siatini, we are keen on joining the Africa Circular Economy.
Yeah.
And because the focus of our organization is on economic rights. So
exactly.
It would be to think about how we can create an economic movement away from what Natasha, if I get the name right, what she has been saying, to go away from the usual way that we have been thinking about the circular economy. So think about how we can create an economic movement for the circular economy.
I think that's a good one. How can we create an economic movement? I added that one to your point, saying it needs an economic, the economic opportunities need to be there. But Natasha, I'm also curious about you, because you say circularity has been in Africa for a long time. So I mean, both of what you're saying makes sense. But if we then take circularity has been there for a long time, maybe there is something we can then start thinking of it in a different way and reframing that narrative. Natasha, do you have thoughts on that one?
I'm also just thinking, how can like the indigenous knowledge, how can they monetize that? Because there are certain skills that they use in this indigenous knowledge that is not being monetized, but there's so much rich skills that for example, if you're looking at a villager who is weaving a mat out of some crop residues,
Yeah.
then how do they monetize that skill, Because
exactly.
When you look
that
at
fits
the
in
outcome,
nicely,
when you
doesn't
look
it?
at the outcome of their work, you would see how rich the skill is, but then they're not monetizing it the way that would indeed be economically empowering to them. I don't know whether I'm making sense.
You are, and you're actually building on, because the first thing, yes, exactly. The first thing I wrote down was, how can we create an economic movement? And what you're saying is, how can we monetize indigenous knowledge? It's essentially part of an economic movement that we need. So basically what we're saying, because I'm also agreeing with you, is that we need to put economy central in the circular economy. I think.
Exactly.
How can we do that? Do we need new words for it? Do we need indigenous knowledge? I mean, that's something that is now maybe valued, but not in financial terms.
I don't know if I can talk. Because now, for Uganda's specific context, now we do have a circular economy roadmap. And I know for a fact it is very high level. And I think that conversation has also been had previously. It is a very high level conversation that is thinking about how manufacturers can then use circular economy principles. It's not thinking about which interventions and which kind of support can be provided to which kind of capacity can be built for the normal citizens to engage in circular economy in a way that can also help create economic opportunities. Because there's a lot that can be done. Natasha had mentioned some of the things that can be done, and there's a need for the people to have to have these opportunities to help them. So I think that's where we come in terms of helping to build the capacity of the normal citizens that are not part of those high level conversations, as well as seeing how we could engage at that high level to kind of bridge that gap that is between that.
We have half a minute left. What can we do? Us. Bring it to the normal citizen. Can we do that?
Pardon? You broke off a bit.
On that one, I think as one of the ladies, was it Kathy, who was talking about angel investors? Like in my case, as a local organization working with grassroots women or indigenous knowledge, you find that for you to access grants, there are all these restrictions. You need to meet this, you need to meet that. But then when you look at the richness of what is happening on the ground, you'd say if that support is indeed going to the grassroots level and not benefiting mostly the middlemen. Yeah, so that's something, what needs to be done, where we are cutting the middleman and making sure that the benefits go to the grassroots.
Define it and make.
I noted it, and now everyone is joining, so we need to stop. But thank you.
And yet again, not enough time to go into as much depth as we would wish in these conversations. Welcome back, everyone. Let's see if we have everyone back here. We know that we are a little bit over time, but also judging by the conversations that we've had right before going into the last exercise, I think there's also a lot of desire to share. So actually, we will really love to wrap up this session by giving a minute and a half to each group to maybe share their aha moment and their value. So maybe we can just start in chronological order, maybe room 1. I know that I have been in there, but I would really love to give the room either to Lana or to Christine. If any of you would like to share a few thoughts very quickly with the rest of the group, because I think we had a really good conversation.
I'd like to allow Christine to engage with the room, or rather have the room get the pleasure of hearing Christine's voice.
Yes, so thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Christine from Kenya. So for us, our aha moment or the key takeaway from our discussion is the inclusion of the informal sector in circular strategies and structures in the African context, because we acknowledge, one, from practice and from what is the reality in Africa, the informal sector plays a key role in our circularity. There are the linkages between the processors and recyclers. There are the linkages between our homesteads where we live, the waste we generate, and the people who recycle this waste or reuse or repurpose this waste. Yet they are missing from our policies. They are missing from, for example, such a discussion here today. They are missing in conferences where they will be able to have their voice listened to. They are missing from most of the research sometimes that we carry out, and their voice is not really reflected even in writing. Yeah, so just that, I think that's our key takeaway, and how inclusion then will work for us is, as you've said, in terms of market finance, capacity building, skill development, markets. I think I've mentioned market and credit access. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christine, both for sharing the insightful and for the valuable conversation, and the same to Lana. Shall we maybe move to breakout room 2, if anyone wants to share?
Yeah, I feel very strong about it. So sorry if I'm dominating here, Christoph. But I learned a new word today. I didn't even know it exists, but it describes exactly my aha moment, and that's called predatory research. I know Eurocentric research, but there's also predatory research. And what I put in as my aha moment is really that the guys with the big bucks that are coming to Africa to fund projects on CE research are, in the best of cases, very uninformed, and they do not understand African reality. So they come from a Eurocentric perspective on, focusing on the wrong thing. For example, trying to investigate circular economy innovation in corporations. And, we pointing out that it's actually happening on SMME level. We have SMME sector that's very strong. We have the hustlenomic economy. So the global north doesn't understand that, okay? So this is the best case scenario, that it's just Eurocentric and uninformed, but it comes sometimes downright predatory, that it comes under the guise of doing some research on CE, on promoting something about exchanging knowledge on CE, but it's just a thinly veiled attempt to just figure out where are our resources and securing those resources for their own country. And that's one of the reasons that I, as a German, have actually started co-founding ACID, because I saw this, and the Europeans will not come anymore and colonialize you like they used to do, but they will come with a steamroller and steal your resources.
resources through this kind of approach. So I think we as African organizations need to be much more concerning about who do we support, where do we spend our time? We are already all stretched. None of us is rich, you know, and how do we really, are we actually turning down also certain requests for help if we're not feeling that they really serve us Africans?
Thank you so much, Suzanne. We are also taking quite a few notes that we will share afterwards. I feel like I'm learning for sure quite a few new terms as well, including predatory research. Shall we go to the next breakout room 3? If anyone wants to share.
Yes, I can maybe quickly, or maybe Samantha, how about you sharing? Because I think you had such really nice insights as well.
Yes, I can do that. Let me just move back to the mirror. Sorry. Okay, room 3, aha moment. So this is just my perspective, but it wasn't really an aha, but it was so lovely to see, and that everyone's head nodding and everyone's smiling when Katerina mentioned the word projects, and everyone's there, and it was that kind of overall feeling. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, and I feel really good. I mean, it's bad, but I feel, oh, I'm in the right room because we all understand what we mean by the term project, being perceived as the vehicle to create transformation by our funders. And I'm with Suzanne on this, and quite strong. I call them gatekeepers. They're not funders, they're gatekeepers, unless we please them and their perception of what they perceive, and it is very global north and Eurocentric terminology and frameworks, unless we please them and refer to it as they want to be seen as, then we don't get to do what we want to do. So they are literally kind of gatekeeping. So hence, we all have to perceive our work as project work, which conflicts with this concept of sustainable circular economy. How can it be circular economy and sustainable if it's a project? A project is short term. And we all have the experiences of we have to go in, we have to do our thing, and we have to get out. That's a project. How is that sustainable? And there's a conflict there as far as I'm concerned. They're short-termed, counterintuitive to circular economy, and long-term and holistic change is needed. And that's where I think that frameworks, which probably only change through policy, but also attitude, has to change. So that we think about things in terms of not just CE, but sustainability. It requires a deeper think and absolute change on multiple levels. And those were my thoughts. That's our conversation from my perspective. Katerina, was there anything else you wanted to?
No, I think you summarized it. I think what we also said that we believe in sustainability, and Samantha rightfully said that requires thinking a bit deeper, you know, than just delivering a project. So it's trying how do we then solve towards that sustainable long-term change that we're all craving, I think. Yeah, and maybe it's the question, and I mean, I said to her as well, we're not an advocacy, we're an advocacy group, but we're not an what is it?
Activist.
Activist.
We're not
Thank you.
activists.
Yes, we're not activists as ASIN, but I think it's also the question is there a space for these uncomfortable discussions to be held with certain donor and certain organizations? And again, they obviously also operate in their larger frameworks, right? If we look at these organizations, they operate within the mandate of the Ministry of Foreign Trade or whatever, whoever gives them their funding. So I think, again, it's the question of like, how do you change that? so that you can actually access funding for long term where it actually makes the difference. And I think where Suzanne says, where we don't have these really ridiculously expensive consultant doing all the work, even though we have so much capacity on the ground already. It really breaks my heart to see in a lot of the cases. So I think that this is a much, much longer conversation to have, actually. But thank you so much.
And wonderful to already see that we're identifying potential streams for longer conversations, and really hope that these will continue. I think we still have 2 more breakout rooms left. So maybe for the breakout room 4, if anyone wants to share very quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to hand over to Amadou to maybe mention because we had 2 aha moments and we were discussing both of them at the same time. And Sharifa, if you can jump in after that, if you don't mind.
Sally, please proceed because I do not have access to the mirror.
No problem. I'll do that. No problem.
Yeah.
So basically, one of the aha moments was gender inclusivity, but we started chatting about that in a way, and a little bit controversially, I raised that sometimes when we write certain things into policy without the backing of capacity or skills or what we need to actually build the inclusivity and the equality, we are just pushing a numbers game. What that means is we're still not making a big difference. So what that means is, what we were saying is that everyone actually has voice. How do we build capacity? And that is essential, 100%. But that everyone has a voice. And as a woman, I know that especially, recently or whatever, over the last few years, I remember my first job, I was hired in a position because, great, you're a female, tick. And it's like, what? That annoyed me. But I understand that sometimes we have to have these things because there's an imbalance and we need to balance things out. However, what we were coming to as a group, and as we were talking about it, it was around everyone, we're human first, everyone has voice, building that capacity is essential so that we can build that leadership and empowerment and it becomes natural and organic. Maybe that's way too blue sky at this point, but anyway, that was also what. I'm going to just leave it there because we didn't finish because we had 2 discussions. The other aha moment was around that CE isn't actually new, and that we need to, and we keep creating these narratives around new terms, etc. Whereas actually, if we just led with the narrative that CE is not new, is that we know it, and we bring that into the conversation, maybe we'll have a slightly different outcome. And so it's a kind of saying that we believe this is naturally, this is what we do. And how do we bring those into our conversations instead of trying to create new words and terms and all these things that we do. And especially in an African context where these things are happening already, often. But Sharifa, I've just, I started that. So please jump in. I'm going to stop talking for a sec. Sharifa?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Sally. So yeah, it's not new. It's not new because like as we were discussing and I was reflecting based of like what all the speakers said and of course what Sally also mentioned during her presentation, I realized that like my mother was she's a circular economy expert now. Like it was imbibed in her daily affairs and her trying to get us to do the same things, reusing certain items, repurposing maybe old clothes, transforming it into something creative, something new or something. Like she was an expert already, but like I didn't take cognizance of that because when you talk about circular economy, I think of fancy words. I think of we're mentioning, okay, recycling, we're mentioning other new terms that are coming up. regularly as this whole circular economy topic is becoming more mainstream. So if we reduce the amount of new terms that we use and like break it down to the simplest terminologies, and then give that awareness or give that knowledge to grassroots level, to high, even I would say politicians or policymakers. That way they I think we'll really see less resistance to circular economy, in like, you know, imbibing circular economy in like country plannings and whatever. Just breaking that down, because for me, really was an aha moment. I was like, we do this already. It's in our DNA, as Susan said. But we just don't take cognizance of that. And that is something that I know I'm going to take going forward. And in terms of like what to do is, of course, awareness. I think that's another part that's lacking. Like when I got introduced to the circular economy topic, it was really new to me. And I think I'll take it forward personally as well, because like I need to break it down. I need to share that knowledge with people, with young women. Whenever I'm doing policy discourse, take it down to the grass level, to the communities, to kind of explain that like it's not fancy, it's not something that's totally novel. It's something that you do, but just contextualizing it or formalizing it just a little bit, that it is recognized and measured accurately in a way that can directly lead to like policy formulations or influence strategic policies of the country, of the state, of that community, etc.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
We have one more breakout room, and then we will wrap this up.
But thankfully, we were in the plenary, so we breakout room 5, and we built very much on breakout room 4, saying circular economy is not new, especially not in Africa. Natasha, could I invite you to share, because we built in one more sort of component that's needed in order to move forward. Would you like to unmute and share, Natasha?
I was depending on you that you were taking the notes.
Oh, then I will, because I was actually
Please,
taking the notes on Miro, because not everyone could get in there. But it means I can be really brief, because we were a small group, but the discussion centered around, okay, it's not new, we need to continue, but there needs to be the economic component. Basically, we need to put economy into circular economy, and firmly so, in order for it to be inclusive, include all the informal workers that are there right now, maybe give it different names, we were not really sure. But from hearing also from circular economy sounding fancy, yes, maybe we do need to pick up that narrative too. I think that's really our greatest addition. The rest has basically been said. We had a great conversation also, but also in view of looking at the time, I will keep it this short. But thank you from our breakout room also, because the discussions were lovely. And I think also hearing all of you, I think our next step really should be, shouldn't it be, to bringing all the people we're talking about, to let them be part of this conversation. So maybe that's the next challenge for us to look at also. How do we reach the people who need to hear this? On the one hand, I'm representing Europe here, not always happy about how things are going, but recognize it, how it is going at the moment very much. I work in projects, would love it for it to be longer term. But also the informal sectors, the people we're talking about, the people who need to also be part of the conversation. So that was on a personal note from my takeaways from this session. And I will hand over also now to Anka, because I think we need to close this part and also actually move towards closing the whole session, because we are terribly late, aren't we?
Yes, but I think that's also a really, really good sign. Thank you everyone for the participation, for stepping into a space of more reflection and discomfort, for acknowledging what works, what doesn't, and what we can potentially do better in the future together. We did have an planned also a networking space, but as Tov already mentioned, we kind of ate up into it. What we would love to invite you though would be to maybe share your contact details in the chat if you want, maybe a LinkedIn link or websites or whatever you want to share. Also, maybe if you are okay with that, we can share, if anyone wants to share their contact lists, we can also share it via email. I think that maybe on the Ascent side, on the organizers, we can have access to that if there is more desire to connect further. But otherwise, again, thank you very much. This was a very insightful conversation, and I hope that this won't be the last one.
Are you all happy with sharing in the chat rather than being in breakout rooms? Because I do think we went off the time limit, sort of, so don't want to ask up people's time more than this. And I saw already a lot of people connected on LinkedIn because I checked my LinkedIn while we were speaking. So I hope you will find each other there and set up your own meetings. Yeah, I see a lot of sharing there. Thank you. Keep that up. And thank you all of you who joined in today and for ASEN to hosting this webinar. It's not a webinar, session.
Thanks, it was amazing.
Thank you so much to Anka and Tove who drove this initiative as well. So thanks also Sally for pushing from your end and Christo for doing everything in the background. It always takes quite a lot of effort actually to put these things together. So I'm really grateful for the people behind the scenes that actually make these things happen and give us this common shared space. So thank you so much. And for obviously the participants that join with us. So we're trying to also figure out this format. So if you have any feedback, please fill in the survey, get in contact also with Christo, Tove and Anka, so that we can actually make sure that we can also adjust this outline, I think, because we're also trying to learn and figure out what format works and what hopefully bears fruits then at the end of the day as well. Enjoy your day, guys.
That's a good one, actually. Please. Did we share the survey? Did we share the
Christo
survey?
did. Yeah, Christo did.
I shared it in the chat.
Christo, you do everything. Thank you for
Yes.
being there on the background.
He's quite amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much. No, then
Thanks,
you're all
everyone.
free to go. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.